One. Hi, and welcome to this episode of Brainy Moms, brought to you today by Learning RX Brain Training Centers. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Moore, coming to you today from Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I am joined by my co-host, Sandy Zamalis, coming to us from Stanton, Virginia. Sandy and I are super excited to bring you a conversation with our guest today, Cindy Muchnick. Cindy is a graduate of Stanford University and has been working in education for more than 25 years as a former assistant director of college admissions, a high school teacher, education consultant, and an author. She's also an experienced and always learning mother of 3 sons and a daughter, ranging in age from 16 to 24. Cindy speaks to parents, students, teachers, and business groups on topics such as study skills, the adolescent journey, college admission, and now the Parent Compass movement. She's the co-author of the book, The Parent Compass, Navigating Your Teen's Wellness and Academic Journey in Today's Competitive World. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you for having me, ladies. What a nice introduction.
We are so glad you're here, Cindy. We're going to just jump right in. What is a Parent Compass, and how did you come up with the idea to write this book?
Well, that's the perfect way to start. So the Parent Compass actually is a term that is coined by me and my co-author, Jen Curtis. We both are out in California, and we have been for the last almost 30 years combined working as educational consultants, also known as private college counselors. Those people who are sometimes hired to help guide kids through middle school and high school, culminating in the college admission process. But something really crazy happened in March of 2019 that hit the headlines, Operation Varsity Blues, also called the college admission scandal. And my first phone call was to my colleague and friend, Jen. And the two of us spent about 90 minutes on the phone. I kind of hearken it to what it felt like watching the OJ car chase. Just, I think we all know where we were then, just watching that white car drive and drive. This was a few days of just shock and terror because the most extreme version of, college, I don't even know, wrongdoing was happening in front of our eyes. And it was at the fault of parents who had kind of jumped in and broken the law and worked with a crooked college counselor, and not the kind of college counselor Jen and I had been all those years. So we pride ourselves on being ethical, on being cheerleaders for our students, on appreciating our students at whatever level they might be academically and whatever their goals might be for any kind of college, of which there are 4,000 in the United States. So there's plenty to choose from. That being said, the two of us were just in shock and said, this is crazy. And we started realizing that in this conversation, we'd worked with kids through the years who seemed to be parented in ways that were really supportive and took kind of a backseat to their kids and let their kids kind of drive the ride. And then parents who really were taking over and being, combative and speaking for their kids and really navigating their kids' lives and controlling their kids' lives in a way. And we started seeing some signs of that playing out in our own consulting practices. No parents breaking the laws, but parents who were really kind of crossing lines that we hadn't seen in the past. And we realized we needed to do something about this. And originally, we set out to write an etiquette book to teach parents the right etiquette during the tween and teen years of how to parent. And what it evolved into was really what we now call kind of a movement and our mission, which was the Parent Compass. And that term came from the idea of using a parent compass as kind of a tangible reminder, almost like a way to remember to check yourself as a parent, a way to remember when it's time to pull back, when it's time to let our kids, be in the driver's seat. And it's a very difficult thing to follow because our nature in parenting is to want to fix and manage and love and pour over our kids, right? But what science and data have told us, and probably Amy, you can kind of attest to this in some of your own research, is that over-involved parents really do more damage than good. And it's proven that kids are, suffering depression, anxiety, a lot of new stressors in this generation, and parents strangely are making it worse as opposed to making it better. So we are trying to we're trying to break the helicopter parent. We are trying to undo the parent that you see on the sidelines that just is an embarrassment, or at back to school night that's barking on and on about their kids. And we're really trying to kind of pull back and re-examine what our role can be as parents, how to best serve our children and preserve their mental health, and how to also really keep that parent-teen relationship intact, which we think is the most important in all of this, that the mental health of the teens and the parent-teen relationship. And beyond that, the rest is just figuring this out as we go. So we put together this book. We interviewed deans of admission, heads of schools, college counselors that were inside schools, teachers, even students. And we collected the data to kind of support this message that we carry through the book about following your parent compass. And we're really proud of kind of the way that it's taken off and the way it's been received. And that's a little bit of background to the story.
So I want you to spend a little bit of time for our listeners who might not understand the idea or the concept of helicopter parenting. And I think you mentioned some other names for that too, snowplow and tiger. Can you talk a little bit about that and what the dangers of parenting like that can be, in addition to what we saw, the extreme version of that, in the college admission scandal, but in general.
Right. So a helicopter parent, I mean, the term came from parents who, hover too closely and who are just constantly in their kids' business all the time. And there's also the term militaristic parents, snowplow parents who smooth away the snow. There's even another one they're using called, I'm blanking on the sport, the Olympic sport, the curling parents even, that are clearing the way of the ice for the puck to go down, whatever that's called. So all of those terms are really similar. And really what they mean are parents who are just too involved in the day-to-day moments and decisions in their kids' lives, and who really are managing their kids as if their kids are their trophies or an extension of them in some way that they feel is a direct reflection of who they are. So parents, I sort of described it as, you don't want to be that parent. That parent would be the helicopter parent, the one that's meddling with the teachers, the one that's making all the appointments for their kids, the one that's speaking over their kids when an adult asks their kids a question, the one who is checking on the school grade site every day to see if homework assignments are turned in. I mean, there's so many examples of, it's kind of the parent we don't really want to say we are or have never been, but chances are most of us have been in some way, shape, or form in our years of parenting. And in the Parent Compass, Jen and I both confess mistakes we made in our own lives and ways we learned from the students we worked with and from the experts that we turned to, and from the real practice of trying to continue to follow our own parent compass, because it is hard what we're asking parents to do. It requires bravery. It requires a village. It requires, a commitment that you're going to make sort of to yourself and your child for the betterment of everybody. And Lord knows we all just want to, kind of be the best parent we can be to our kids, but sometimes all that love comes out in a way that is really not helpful to our kids. It's really actually harmful and doesn't allow them to have a voice, to learn to self-advocate, to learn the grit and resilience, to learn from failure, all the things we're learning from, experts out there who are doing all the research on it. So, that's what we're kind of trying to take away. And it could start pretty young, right? Like, we focus on tween and teen years, but it's the parent who, we sort of know this sometimes happens with our first children. Your child falls down at the park. The parent goes sprinting over, wipes them off, wipes their nose, kind of has a panic, gives them a big hug and kiss, and don't cry, whatever it is. And then you can sometimes tell who's the parent who's had another child because the first child falls and they're like, you okay, bud? Wipe off your knees. Come on over. You're fine. You're good. So it changes almost child to child as you gain more experience as a parent. But my co-author, Jen, has younger kids. They're not teenagers yet. So I think she's going to be amazing at this whole, parent compass thing. She's already laying the groundwork and planting the seeds. I wish I had followed some of my own advice sooner as well. So
where do you think that comes from? That need to hover or to overparent, especially in the teen years? I mean, when kids are young, safety, but where do you, because in your book, you even say these are well-intentioned parents.
Yep.
They're just some, maybe some poor choices along the
Right.
way that are meant to help but hurt instead. So where do you think the root is and why we do this?
The root is a couple areas. I mean, I think the first root is love. I mean, the root is like, this is a way we think as parents, we are showing our love. We are demonstrating our love by fixing, advising, managing, doing, being so involved. So that's maybe the easy answer. It might sound a little bit soft, but I think that's where it starts. The other thing is our own upbringings. So we finished writing the Parent Compass, and we realized once we reread the whole galley and saw the book, and it was kind of close to getting ready to go to press, which was right before COVID began, we realized we were missing a really important chapter, which was the chapter about looking backwards. And we created a new chapter. It's a little bit of the physician heal thyself concept, that you can't really parent well unless you've sort of done a deep dive into who you are and investigated what biases and baggage you're bringing to the table based on your own upbringing, based on the way your parents parented you, based on your own academic experience or the kind of student you might have been, or maybe even whether you went to college or didn't go to college, and what your wishes and desires might be for your child based on your own upbringing. So in order to best address that, we created a questionnaire. We tried it out on hundreds of people. And it's a questionnaire where you and your partner, or if you're a single parent, you can do it alone with another parent who's like supporting you. But basically, it's this questionnaire asking you to kind of deep dive and reinvestigate your own history. And by sharing that with your partner, you also can start some pretty good conversations about your parenting styles and your goals. And we all think there's certain things we want to retain maybe that our parents did for us, but other things we might want to let go or do differently. And then ironically, we somehow find ourselves with the things we wanted to let go, sometimes doing those things ourselves and repeating the ways our parents did it for us because that's familiar, or maybe that's somehow ingrained in us. So we created this questionnaire. Then the only time we asked for teens to get involved in the book was we created a teen questionnaire. And we advised parents in the book to say, find a good moment where you can grab your teen away from social media, preferably with some food in hand, and say to them the words, I want to be a better parent. And would you mind spending 5 minutes answering these questions for me so that we can have a better relationship and I can do a better job? And something about admitting that to our teens and tweens just stops them they look up from their phones. They're like in shock. They can't believe usually what my mom or dad is saying they want to do better. Like, okay, yeah, I'm in. So this questionnaire for teens allows them to voice back, what is it that you want your parent to do differently? What it allows them to give some constructive feedback and criticism to us and to examine the way they feel they're being parented. And it's in that conversation that the change or the Parent Compass process can then begin. So it's sort of this precursor to putting it into play and putting it into practice. I mean, you can jump ahead and kind of skip over that too, and just read the chapters that might appeal to you about technology or after school activities or the college admission process and kind of what your role is as a parent. But that one exercise tends to sort of, now it's not, Amy, it's not super scientific. I know you are you study the brain and all of that. This is a very, familial and familiar kind of group of questions. So maybe we could do a study on it later and you could write about it, who knows? But the point is, it seems to work. And it seems to open up that dialogue that's pretty essential. And it also kind of puts you a little bit more on an even playing field with your kids so that they don't feel that you feel you're the expert in everything.
Don't you think that reaction that you all noticed from the teens, how they were absolutely shocked that their parents said, hey, I want to be a better parent. Don't you think that that's a fundamental problem with parenting in general? The fact that they would be so shocked says to us, wait a minute, why aren't we being vulnerable and honest? Why aren't we admitting when we've made a parenting mistake? Why aren't we apologizing when we've said something hurtful to our own child all along? To the fact that then we get to the teen years and they're going to be shocked when we say, I want to do this better.
Amy, the point you just made is so interesting because recently I've been talking about this with like friends and other mothers. And, I have friends who say, my kids haven't seen me cry in front of them before, or I have trouble apologizing to my kids because it shows that I'm not in control or something. And you sort of hear these things and you go, really? Like, I think it's in that vulnerability and in the apology and in the desire to say, I want to do better, that's when the real depth to the relationship can come in, right? Because we are saying, look, there's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of movies out there. There's a lot of experts out there weighing in. There's therapists, there's doctors studying the brain. We know a lot of the scientific stuff, but we, when it comes down to it, it is so important. You're absolutely right to kind of take away that feeling of shock, right? Because our teenagers, I think that Dr. Mike Riera, he's the head of a school in LA, and he's written a few parenting books, and he says something very wise about how up until about middle school, your kids, you do manage everything because you are driving them everywhere and feeding them and clothing them, and you're helping them grow, but you're also kind of in charge of their schedule and their calendar because you just you're their caretaker. But come late middle school, usually at some point you get fired by your kids as the manager. They just are like, nope, I'm picking out my clothes, I'm choosing my friends, I'm quitting this activity. You get that sort of what we look at as almost rebellion, but I think it's really just finding your independent voice. And it hurts, like, oh my God, wait, what? You don't need me anymore. You don't want me anymore, all of that. And suddenly you realize that if you've done a good job kind of leading up to that, and you have that trust in your relationship, that you get hired back as a consultant. And I love his terminology. Some parents use driver's seat and passenger seat, different ways, but we quote him because he's the one, I think, who really originally coined it. And we think it makes so much sense because that's sort of what you should go on to be as a parent, almost for the rest of their lives, just to be the consultant at some point. If we don't let go and we don't let them figure this stuff out and have the failures and make the mistakes, and doesn't mean we can't help them brainstorm or prepare. I have had kids say, I'm nervous to go talk to my teacher. I'm afraid about what they're going to say. They're in a control situation where the teacher gives the grade and they are trying to get information or whatever it is. And that's a great place for a parent to say, do you want to role play? Do you want to brainstorm so you feel comfortable when you're going to go have that conversation? I can help you with that if you want. And that's when I also advise parents to pull out an index card, old school, and hand it to their kid and say, jot down the things that you want to talk about. Because when you get to that environment where you're nervous, you forget sometimes, or you get nervous and you don't know what you're going to say. And so you can just refer to your card and tell the teacher you wrote down the things you wanted to talk about. I say that to do that in interviews too, because I think we try to memorize and have so much held in our head that's too hard. So those kinds of ways are the ways that we can guide them, that I think are healthy and that are helpful and not harmful, if they want it, if they want your advice, in those ways.
Most parents are really afraid to let their kids fail. And I love how you just kind of pulled out some really tangible, like, steps that you use to kind of help walk through. Do you have more steps like that you talk about in your book for parents?
Thank you for asking.
From failure.
Yeah, that's really good. So first of all, the failure, again, the data from, everyone from Carol Dweck to, the Pew Research Institute will tell you that, we didn't invent this. I mean, you have to watch your kids fail and make these mistakes. And that is where the greatest amount of growth occurs, right? We know as adults how many failures and mistakes we've made, which I encourage parents to share them with your kids. Tell them, I remember when this happened to me, or this just recently happened to me. I mean, come home and share your failures of that day so that it normalizes that that's okay. Like, of course, this kind of stuff's going to happen. Of course, we're going to feel dejected or rejected or broken in some way. And we know it's what you do as a result of that is where the growth happens and where the learning happens. And so it starts, to me, as early as when our kids are, getting themselves dressed or tying their shoes, right? Like, we could tie the shoes really quick. We could pop the clothes on them. But if they put their arm in the wrong sleeve and button it funny, and they, tie their shoes in knots, eventually they're going to be able to get dressed. I mean, we're going to be impatiently waiting at the door to leave, right? It's like, oh my God, please get this on. So there are times when we need to help, but let them start to make those mistakes and go, oh, this is funny. Why I had to go to the bathroom and I couldn't unzip oh, maybe because your shirt was stuck and you're okay, well, next time that's not going to happen. I mean, it can start so much earlier than these tween and teen years. And I don't know. I just think, if you look at Jessica Leahy's The Gift of Failure, if you look at Wendy Mogul's Blessing of a Skinned Knee, I mean, all of these wonderful psychologists and experts out there who are telling us time and again, as hard as it is, like, let them fail. How many times have we dropped them off at school and you see the homework on the seat in the car next to you? Do you run it in when you get halfway home? Do you turn around? Do you go back? Do you text them that you have their homework? Do you bring it to the front desk and say, sorry, they left this behind. Can you get it to them? Or do you wait for the text or the call or the angry when they got home, what a bummer it was that they got the 0 on the paper, right? Or on the 10-point homework assignment. So that one's hard. I mean, that one as a parent, oh my gosh, they did the homework, they brought it with them, but they left it on the front seat. Like they were rushing to get out. It could be your fault because you were not like getting along so great at that moment, whatever it is. But we're advised to leave it on the front seat because it'll never happen again. The homework will go in the folder. The homework will go in the backpack. The homework will be in their hand, not on the front seat, because that's the first time and hopefully the last that it'll happen. Or maybe it'll happen a few times until they get the message. But those are the kinds of hard parenting things. And you can ask me, my first kids, I delivered the homework. I definitely did. I took the blame. I would go up to the front desk, say, so sorry, my bad. We took the wrong car and this ended up in the, whatever. I would take the excuse. And my son would come home from school so relieved and happy. But then my next kids didn't like me as much because I didn't bring the homework. So it takes bravery. We have to be brave. We have to be strong for the betterment of, of their growth in it. And, it doesn't mean, I mean, I don't know. There's certain times when I'm sure there's exceptions and there's a lot of gray areas, as we know, in parenting, but, see how it works. Try it once and see if you can survive it.
Yeah, so I think that kind of leads us into the next thing I really like about your work is that you want to challenge the idea and definition of success. And so as you think about running your kids' homework back to school, if you asked a mom, why did you do that? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, well, I want him to succeed, or I don't want him to fail, right? I want him to be successful. So I'm going to provide this, extra help.
Right.
Help, right?
Scaffolding.
Exactly. And so you talk about lots of ways that we should be defining success, not related to this perfection, but living a life with purpose, being confident and secure in your capabilities. Talk a little bit about some of your favorites.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy, for asking about that. Not many people ask about that. So I like that you brought that up, and I love talking about that because, so first of all, we were really fortunate as we were writing the book to partner with an amazing organization called Challenge Success. And in the title of the organization, they're kind of a sort of think tank. It's co-founded by a Stanford University professor and a San Francisco-based author and therapist, marriage, family, and teen therapist. And together they created this organization that's been around at least probably 10 years, probably a decade. And the goal of Challenge Success is to redefine success and kind of turn the notion of, grades, test scores, and where you went to college as these defining factors that somehow quantify our kids as being successful. And so what Challenge Success does is, and I highly recommend you guys look into them or bring them to your schools. They go into schools, high schools all over the country, and they survey hundreds of thousands of teachers, faculty, students, and parents to try to kind of rebuild high schools, the culture of the high schools, to allow later start times, longer passing times between classes. They create Challenge Success committees within the school where the students can voice their feelings of, adequacy or inadequacy based on the way that the school handles grading. And, they try to take away the concept of like rankings in school, and they just do a lot of really good things, boots on the ground. And there's like 400,000 high schools in the country. So they have barely scratched the surface, but there are a lot of places that they still need to go. But anyway, Challenge Success, Denise Pope, the co-founder, actually wrote the foreword for the Parent Compass because we are speaking the same language as Challenge Success. We are trying to teach parents that wherever your kid winds up is the right place for them, whether it's college or not, whether it's college, trade school, the military, a gap year, the workforce, beauty school, trade school, tech school. There's a lot of different choices, and the road is very curvy to get there. It's not necessarily A to B to C to E to D to E, whatever. And so we really like the idea that like success can really be measured about how good do our kids feel in their own skin doing whatever it is that they enjoy doing. I mean, if that was the definition of success right there, don't we all want kids to be happy, like happy children, happy young adults contributing to the world in some way that brings them joy and that are kind to other people and that know how to communicate and know how to self-advocate and ask for what they need, know how to be a good friend and support others. I mean, if college is measured on kindness and on, all of these other qualities that aren't just grades, test scores, and numbers, obviously there's college essays and recommendations and all those other things, but it's a very flawed process. We all sort of know that. And yes, it's holistic, but parents are caught up in the frenzy of schools that are on a magic list that, I hate to even say the word US News and World Report, but that, created a terrible, measurement, a point of measure that added so much stress and so much unnecessary anxiety to kids and their families, because it just became, oh, if you're not at a school on this list, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be a good contributing member of the world. And we know as adults, I mean, some of the greatest people in my own life, my closest circle, have gone to some colleges I've never heard of or didn't finish college. And some of the most miserable, unhappy people I might have met have gone to colleges I've heard of. So again, without generalizing, I guess the main thing is that if we can just really look at success differently, and the way I like to define it is just to wear the t-shirt that says college or says trade school. It doesn't even have to have the name. It's just college or beauty school or whatever it is, community college, it could say whatever it is. So I do think that, if we can challenge that notion and we can redefine it, and Challenge Success really does that. So go look at their white papers. They've written one recently on, it matters more what you do in college than where you go to college. They have pages and pages of data to support that. They surveyed college students all over the country, and they pull this fabulous data together that holds up a mirror to all of us, saying it doesn't matter really. I mean, yes, doors might open a little easier from here or there, whatever it might be, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful and you're not going to be happy and live a life of purpose.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So I went to state schools and for-profit schools. And okay, so is that impressive? No, but it didn't matter to me. It worked for my family circumstances, and I learned what I wanted to learn. Yeah. And so, and I guarantee you, when I submit a research study for peer review to a scientific journal, they don't care where I went to school. They want to know that my science is technically sound, right? And so, yes. And so I just love hearing a former college admissions officer saying that that's not the most important thing, the name on your sweatshirt.
Yeah. Well, I always tell students, I mean, state schools, honestly, first of all, they're the most affordable, which because they're your state system, right? I mean, you're paying taxes, so why not take advantage? Number one, a lot of kids choose state colleges, A, because of the affordability, but B, because they can even rise higher maybe than they would have and focus their save up and maybe go on to a graduate school that was more of a goal that they had. So, or they have family circumstances as you had, whatever the reasons might be. I think that the other quote that Jen and I love a lot is college college is not a prize to be won, but oh, hold on. I'm going to have to look it up. It's so good. It's exactly what we're talking about here. Not a prize to be won, but hold on. I found it. It's not a prize to be won. Sorry to hold on. College is a match to be made, not a prize to be won. Sorry, I had to read it because I had it on my phone. College is a match to be made, not a prize to be won. And the match, as we know, so okay, everyone has, thinks some people believe in a soulmate, that one person you're going to spend your life with, but I think we know that there could be many. There could be dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of people we could have ended up choosing for a partner and spending our life with. And sometimes we go through a few choices till we find the right one, right? But for college, again, making a match in college, there are so many to choose from with so many different factors and geography, cost, programs that they offer, research opportunities, how much mentorship you get, how they place kids in the job force, or what their relationship is. I mean, I have a son that is at a prestigious, fancy, whatever Ivy League school, and was so surprised how the interviews didn't flow at the beginning when he was looking for jobs. So, and friends at other schools were having an easier time. So the whole system is a little bit odd, because our perception is that if you go to a school like this, you may get X, Y, and Z. And quite frankly, it doesn't always work out that way. So I just think, yeah, we have to kind of shift the perception. And, ladies, you probably know this, like a decade ago, if somebody said their kid was taking a gap year, we all sort of would go, oh, and sort of think, I wonder what went wrong, or that kid didn't blossom yet, or just they need some extra time to grow or mature, whatever it is. And now if kids aren't taking a gap year, people are like, wow, you're crazy. You're going right into college. I mean, wow, right out of the grind of high school. Like, people think they're celebrating. What are you doing? Where are you going? What's it going to be? And so again, that's an adjustment that we've made as a culture that I think is a positive adjustment. I think it's one of the COVID silver linings, which is we can start to redefine for ourselves what these kids can redefine for themselves, what their futures can look like. And they can all look different. It's just that as parents, it's hard for us when our kid takes a different route or takes a different path, or we feel that we're different somehow from the norm or from the environment around us. And again, that's where you just have to look inward and say, who are the most important people to you on your planet? The people that live under your roof, and then your close family and friends. And then after that, everyone else is there, but they don't get to influence how you're going to parent and how you're going to live and do your journey, and you're in the privacy of your own home.
Sure. And on the opposite side, like you mentioned, being brave at the top of the show, it also takes a little bit of bravery to defend your choices if we want to impact change as a culture. I mean, I think back to my early years as a curriculum specialist. And when I would hear people say they were homeschooling their kids, this is, in the early 90s, I'd be like, what is wrong with you? Your children need socialization, right? And look at how far we've come in the last few decades in our appreciation of homeschooling. Okay, not just our acceptance, but our appreciation of the many benefits to those families and those kids, right? And so my youngest is taking a gap year right now. Yay. And when he mentioned to his girlfriend's parents for the first time, well, I'm taking a gap year, they said to his girlfriend, he lacks ambition. And so it was their lack of understanding about what he was going to be doing with a gap year. And once he was brave enough to say, hey, I've got plenty of ambition. Listen to what I'm going to do during my gap year. I'm playing for the city's youth symphony. I'm training for the Olympics in rock climbing. And I have a ministry internship.
Wow.
Right? Like he lists all this that he's doing with his gap year. And they're like, oh, right. People think gap year, you're just going to party, right?
A little egg on the face there, huh? But yeah, you're right. You're right. It is. It's a cultural.
To be brave to stand for your choices.
That's right. I mean, it's sort of a cultural shift, and it's a willingness. And look, it's much easier, right, to do what everyone else is doing. I mean, just in everything, to dress and to make choices that are similar, whatever. But who wants a world full of like carbon copies? Like that's what colleges really say they're trying to do. They're trying to build a community and build a diverse class that is different, that has been homeschooled, that has taken a gap year, that has made different choices. Because if everyone's just sort of the same, then where's the, like, I don't know, what's interesting about that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, look at the three of us. We're going to just fix the world together.
That's right. The thing that I think, what you're kind of talking about in that failure side and kind of what Amy was sharing too, is I think what we as a society need to embrace more of is, not every kid's going to have a dream or know what they want to study. Some kids are going to have to learn by failing. They're going to have to try lots of things to see what feels good and what fits. And unfortunately, we don't always have that opportunity in our current system that we have. Even in college is sometimes just like a copy repeat high school, right? With all the prereqs and all the stuff you have to do before you can really finally do things that are interesting to you. How do you, Cindy, how do you help families navigate helping a child figure that out? Do they know what they want? Do they need to just try things? Do they need a gap year?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I mean, I think that some of it is, hooking in to your kid and what it is that they think they might want. And if they don't know yet, I mean, how can we all know? Like some kids by 18 are like, I know X, Y, and Z, and I want to study this, and then I want to go there. And then, you're like, wow, that's like a lot to have already figured out. I didn't know what political science was until I got to college, or anthropology was, or sociology was. So we didn't have classes named that in high school. So my big advice that I give to kids going off to college is to take as many survey courses as you can, to get exposed to an economics class and art history class and things that you haven't seen before, to understand a little bit, just in a very broad way, what different fields look like. I knew very quickly after my first economics class that not only did I have to switch to pass fail because it was so far over my head, but I know that I loved when the teacher explained it, but I couldn't explain it. My brain didn't work with axes and ups and downs, curves and supply and demand. It just didn't. It still doesn't. But it's interesting. I'd listen to it. But if I was asked a question that adjusted the axes for my test, I mean, forget it. It wasn't even an option. But then I took a political science class from a professor that, had been around for 50 years. He was as old as my grandfather. And it was so interesting. I didn't understand. I didn't even know what that field was. And I wasn't particularly interested in politics, but I was interested in learning about the government and learning about the ways other countries do things. And that was just interesting to me. So I think one way is that. Another way is there really are there, if you can believe it, I mean, there are career coaches and people who your kids can go and take kind of personality and surveys and tests that probably, Amy, a little bit more about even this too, but where you can see, wow, you have these interests and these creative side and the skill side, you might be well suited for X, Y, or Z. Pretty much every college campus also has a career center where they do those kinds of things, where students can go in and learn about different careers, learn about what kind of coursework you would need to go into those careers. I mean, to me, if kids are like, well, I know I want to go to law school because I want to be a lawyer someday, whatever, a litigation lawyer, a corporate business lawyer, whatever it might be, I personally think like you could still be an art history major or an English major or whatever and go on to law school, because you're going to have a lot more time to learn more about the law in law school. So you don't even necessarily have to have a pre-law major. In fact, that may be more interesting not to have a pre-law major. So I think a lot of it is really self-discovery, continuing to expose and encourage our kids. Sometimes it's shadowing and mentoring. So you might have a friend who says, listen, your kid can come tag along with me for a couple of days, or we can go to lunch and I can tell them about what it is I do. And you can, they can see if that's something like that interests them. That's a great way to use your parent network that you have to be able to help each other's kids out in your fields. So, if that would be another way to kind of expose them. And sometimes it's their teachers and mentors that are inspiring them. And, if they mention that they're really close with a teacher or close with a coach, encourage them to cultivate that relationship, because that can often lead to conversations about career. I got into college admissions because I was a tour guide in college. I walked backwards and I brought people around campus and pointed out all the facts and figures and stats and stories about the college campus. I loved it. And then I wrote a letter to the dean of admission and I said, I really think the tour guide program could be improved. And here are the ways it could be better. And he called me into his office. This was my senior year and I'd been a tour guide for like 3 years. And he said, I was really interested by your letter and your improvements, but I was going to ask you what career you think you're going to go into. And I said, I don't really know. I'm an art history and poli-sci major. And I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe something with museums or maybe something in like the political sphere. And he said, have you ever thought about college admissions? And I said, these were my famous last words. I haven't thought of this story in a long time. I said, oh, no offense, but I'm kind of a people person and I can't see myself sitting in a room reading all day, reading applications all day. And he said, oh, Cindy, that's just like 3 months of our job. Like we travel, we go to schools, we go to college fairs, we go to conferences, all this stuff. He said, I think you should check it out. And he did like a program for seniors to introduce you to the career. We spent a week volunteering in the admissions office and he said if I could get a few friends to join, he would put on this program. And then he wrote me a letter of recommendation when I was moving to Chicago. And that started off my first career. And I loved it. I think I would still be doing it today if I hadn't left the city. It was just fulfilling and gratifying. And I loved working with kind of the teens. So how do we all find what it is we find? Sometimes it's just, I don't know, a door closes, a window opens. Sometimes it's, just random synergies we have. And sometimes it's just fate that brings us into these different careers. So, and I think you can, kids don't have to worry so much. And I think as we also know, you can have lots of careers in a lifetime. You can change your mind. You can change your course of study. You can change your job and move into different areas. And that is what makes life interesting unless you want to stay with the same thing and continue to grow in that field.
Okay, so let's say that you've got parents who have managed the lives and careers of their kids. And when I say careers, I mean their, school careers, academic careers. And they're listening, right? They're listening and they're saying, okay, Cindy, I hear what you're saying, but what do I do? If I go hands off, how do I expect my kid to all of a sudden know how to manage their own lives? Right. What do those conversations look like? What are those baby steps, or what is the first step that you would do so that you can begin to understand what your kid wants and not what you want?
Yeah. I think it definitely requires some communication with your teen, because if you're going to kind of go cold turkey and try to, make a shift, then you have to obviously alert them. And the best way to alert them is say, I read a book called The Parent Compass and I listened to some podcasts on parenting and I need to make some changes. I've made some mistakes that might have, harmed you along the way that were unintentional and came from love, but here's what I need to do. A lot of times parents cram this in right before they go to college. Like you give them the laundry lesson, you give them the how to manage your finances lesson, how to be careful on a date, how to ask for consent, like all the stuff you're trying to cram into like the summer before they go away to college, when you could be doing it all along, right? One of my favorite books is by Catherine Newman. It's called How to Be a Person. It's this adorable book that's like written really for like middle schoolers and high schoolers, but even my college kids read it. And I've even read it and learned from it as an adult, that teaches you all these basics, like how to cook a chicken, how to write a thank you note, how to open a bank account, like basic life skills that you kind of want your kids to have before they're launched. And they're written in like with comic strips and cute graphics. And it's really lovely. How to apologize, how to ask permission, how to get consent, all these different things, all the things we're talking about. So you can start that a lot sooner. But I think really with your kids is saying, look, I might not have done the best job by taking over a lot of things. So let's start with this. You need a doctor's appointment next month. The eye doctor, you said, here's the number, make your appointment. And your kid's like, what? And put it on your calendar and let me know if you need a ride, if they don't drive already, whatever. You have so starting with something, basic things. You mentioned you have a project next week that you need materials for. Usually I would go to Staples and pick them up, but here's the credit card, go get what you need. just make sure you get it in time, before Staples closes the night before at midnight, which how many of us have been to Staples at those weird hours, or Office Depot, getting the project stuff that we didn't know was due tomorrow. Okay. So handing over some authority to them to start to, email and make your appointments. Like, I mean, maybe you have a tutor or a counselor or someone you work with. They should be making their own appointments for that. Issues that come up with teachers, you want to talk to them about, do they feel comfortable, or how can you help them so that they can take over if you've been having communication with their teachers, but that they should be doing that communication with their teachers. And again, starting in middle school, when you're there with them to kind of guide them through that, you can start to sprinkle that. The college admissions process too. I mean, that is their process. We have a whole chapter on that. So by the time it's the end of junior year, they can plan what schools, if you have the budget to go visit. If you don't, tell them, get online and start taking the virtual tours. See what appeals to you with colleges. Are you okay with being somewhere cold? Do you want to be near a big city? Is the Greek system important to you in college? Do you want, to be in an one gender college? What might be of interest to you? And all of those things, are giving them permission, but not just permission, guidance to kind of take it over and take ownership. So laundry, we feel bad, like they don't have time, that piles up on the floor. Honestly, once they run out of underwear and it hasn't been done, they're gonna want to know how to do their laundry, right? Like, we want to teach them to do that instead of buying more underwear, right? Although maybe that'll be their solution. So I think those kinds of things, if they drive, gassing up the car themselves, earning money to pay for gas, like having a part-time job. These kids, a lot of us feel like, oh, I don't want them to work because it'll take away from their homework or from their activities. And, let me give them the money to go to pizza and to do this or do that. And what we're kind of doing is we're enabling that. But, my son turned 18 last week and he became a Postmates driver. Okay. He couldn't wait to turn 18 so he could just, whenever he had free time, deliver food. And this is the first podcast I've ever said this on, but he's only been working for Postmates for 4 days and he has made $800. $800. He goes at dinner time and he sometimes gets up early and does a breakfast run. Like, then he worked on the weekends, and it's the greatest thing. It's like this is a child who's like always mumbled when he talks to me. He's like my quietest and just not a super big communicator. So I haven't had as tight of a connection with him, I guess. But he has talked more to me in the last 4 days about delivering food and where he picks up. And he got 2 orders from here. And if you sit here and wait, you'll get pinged and it'll send you a thing. It is like, it's so empowering. And it feels so good to me as a parent to see him excited about his first job. Like, he's had other little part-time things, but this is like his first real job. So all of those ways we can begin equipping, and it doesn't have to be all at once cold turkey. It can be little by little and ease into it and follow the steps of the book. Pick one thing you're willing to work on in the book and start there. And then, okay, that kind of worked or didn't work. Let me try another one. That one worked. Let's keep going with that. So those would maybe be some tidbits.
Awesome. Okay, so we need to take a break. Let Sandy read a word from our sponsor. And when we come back, we want to know just a little bit more about who the book is for, what age group it's appropriate for, things like that when we come back.
Are you concerned about your child's reading or spelling performance? Are you worried your child's reading curriculum isn't thorough enough? Well, most learning struggles aren't the result of poor curriculum or instruction. They're typically caused by having cognitive skills that need to be strengthened. Skills like auditory processing, memory, and processing speed. LearningRx one-on-one brain training programs are designed to target and strengthen the skills that we rely on for reading, spelling, writing, and learning. LearningRx can help you identify which skills may be keeping your child from performing their best. In fact, LearningRx has worked with more than 116,000 children and adults who wanted to think and perform better. The team at LearningRx would like to help you get your child on the path to a brighter and more confident future. Give LearningRx a call at 866-BRAIN-01 or visit learningrx.com. That's learningrx.com.
And we're back. talking with Cindy Muchnick about the Parent Compass. And so, Cindy, talk to us a little bit about who this book is best for, how parents should use this book. I think you even mentioned it could be used as a book club book. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Thank you. Yes. So the Parent Compass was really written for the audience of parents of tweens and teens, so middle school and high schoolers. But we've had parents with younger kids who are overeager, very excited to also read what's coming up ahead. And we've had parents of empty nesters who say, oh gosh, I wish I did some more of these things when my kids were younger. But yeah, it's become a book club read, which we think is so fascinating and interesting. We're so proud of the parents who have said, okay, in my, book club community, let's pick this as a book this month and let's talk about it and let's share content and share stories of our own, life in the battlefields. And Jen and I will pop in on Zoom to any book club anywhere in the country or world when you're talking about the book. And we're happy to listen and participate and answer questions as well, because it brings us a lot of joy to know that the book is spreading out there. I also just talked with a wonderful young teen who has a wonderful platform, and he said he's going to recommend the book as a stocking stuffer, a holiday gift for teens to give their parents. And I thought that was really creative. I like it. I like how he was thinking. So teens, if there's any teens out there listening with your parents, this would make a good Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthday, holiday, whatever kind of gift to kind of help your parents get on track. And even therapists have told me that they're, they keep a copy or a few copies at their practice and have been giving them out to parents of tweens and teens who are kind of going through it. So we feel really excited that it's reaching these different corners, and, we do hope that it just helps make a difference in the lives of parents and helps improve those connections, which a really wonderful psychologist that we met with, Dr. Dan Peters, he quoted this from someone else. So he said it wasn't his quote, but I'll quote whoever he heard it from, was that when our kids leave home, the only thing that we have left behind are not the grades and the scores and the accolades, but all we have left really is the relationship. And that really stuck with me and Jen because that is true, right? I mean, we know that relationship is really important, and it comes with highs and lows and pains and struggles. And, and none of us are perfect. None of us are robots. None of us have the full answer to any question we've ever been asked. Thank goodness for the internet, because we can sometimes ask the internet when we don't know. I always love when my kids would ask me something and say, let's go look it up together. We used to pull down the encyclopedias A to Z, and now we, have much more than that. So I really think that, there's a pretty wide audience out there for it. It's an evergreen title. We hope it just kind of continues to churn along long past COVID, and keep just getting this important message across. We have a website, parentcompassbook.com. We have social media handles at Instagram at Parent Compass. We have, we're on LinkedIn under our names, Cindy Muchnick and Jen Curtis, and under Facebook at The Parent Compass. And this podcast will live forever on our website because we have a tab where our podcasts go. So people can also come listen to this or share it if they'd like. And I have to just say, I love your podcast. I'm such a fan. I like Thinking Moms, Brainy Moms, anything where moms are, we have a lot of cognition, if I'm using that word correctly. And it's important that we harness that and share it and support each other as we go through this, because it's not easy. And we lie at night, on our pillows, wondering and worrying and, trying to see if we're doing everything right. And we aren't. We're just doing the best that we can. And whatever help we can get along the way, we will try to incorporate.
Absolutely. Is there anything you didn't get to say today that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Oh my gosh, you guys let me talk so much. I feel like I didn't let you ladies say enough. No, I mean, I feel like, we're, all trying to fight the good fight. And, no one wants their kid to be the bully. No one wants their kid to be the naughty kid or get in trouble. And I guess maybe one thing I will say, and I don't want to leave on like a negative note, but, all parents, it's heartbreaking when a teenager or tween makes a big mistake that goes public. It's really hard when your kid, gets caught cheating or bullies someone or makes a really big mistake on social media. And it can be so devastating for the parent who feels just so embarrassed and, publicly humiliated, but it's even worse for the kid. And what I would say is, we as parents, we've all been there at some point. We've all, had our kid be the one that, was the biter in kindergarten or, or hit somebody by accident, but maybe on purpose when they were little and didn't have the words or whatever it might be. And as they get older, the problems get different. And so I would just say to give each other grace and forgiveness and empathy, because we really do need that. And a lot of times when a kid makes a mistake, the parent community pulls away. And parents have told me, I feel like I really saw who my real friends were. And so if these are good parents trying, and it's really a good kid that you've watched grow up, but they made a mistake, then be there to support that parent, because they will never forget it. And the shoe might drop and it may be you next, it might be your kid. And so I do say, this is a tricky journey. It's a hard journey. It's not a perfect journey. And, it's heartbreaking, right? I mean, it hurts when our kids are hurting or when we're hurting. So I would say just try to support your village. And we know who those like-minded parents are. And even if it's not someone in your village, reach out and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what you're going through. And I'm here for you if you need a walk or a coffee or just someone to dump on. So that would be my 2 cents to parents to support each other.
That's great advice.
What a great way to end that.
Yeah, that wasn't negative at all. That was super
okay. I never really talked about that before. When the more I've talked with you guys, I feel like, we're all in this together, really. And sometimes we feel really alone. And I think it's important to know that, we really aren't. We are a village. And I do think this world of podcasts that can help parents, and this world of, the positive things that come out of social media are really wonderful and connecting us in ways that we can all just try to do a little bit better.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we're out of time. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Cindy Muchnick, thank you so much for being with us today. Listeners, if you would like to find Cindy, she did mention her website is cynthiamuchnick.com. You can find her on Twitter at Parent Compass One, on Instagram at Parent Compass, and Facebook at The Parent Compass. We'll put all her links and social media handles in the show notes, as well as a link to purchase her book, The Parent Compass. So thank you so much for listening today. If you liked our show, we would love it if you would leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. If you would rather watch us, we are on YouTube, and you can find us on every social media channel at the Brainy Moms, including TikTok, where Sandy can be found at the Brain Trainer Lady, along with you and 100,000 other followers of Sandy. So look, until next time, we know that you're busy moms, and we're busy moms. So we're out.
Have a great week.